I've been here 9 years, and I think in the 9 years I've been here, there's only been a few times that I've been really angry about a proposal, and this one I'm really angry about. Because, God forbid, should I ever want West Hollywood to aspire to be Calabasas. God forbid, should that ever happen to my town, where I'm going to sit here and listen to the mayor of Calabasas, a suburban bedroom community, tell me what's best for the city of West Hollywood. Today, I was down at Starbucks on Santa Monica Boulevard. I was having a conversation with Steve Tyler from Aerosmith, who just happened to be there, having a cup of coffee and smoking a cigarette. And I almost said, Steve, I would love for you and Aerosmith to come to the council meeting tonight, because you're not going to believe what's going to happen. That is West Hollywood. Steve Tyler and Aerosmith and Slash and all the other rock and rollers we have up on the Sunset Strip. That is West Hollywood. And if you walk out here to Boys Town right now, you're going to see young people being reckless like I was, drinking too much, smoking too much, going home with people they shouldn't, and that's West Hollywood. That is part of what West Hollywood is all about. And if you go down to Barney's Beanery, as we've heard, which survived through Prohibition, you know, Barney's is an institution, and they've made good with the GLBT community, and now I'm here having to defend Barney's for the right to be what they've been for 90 years, long before there was a city. Or if I go see the old Russians smoking at the Silver Spoon, who survived coming here to America so they could have a cigarette at the Silver Spoon, and now we're going to tell this whole class of people, by the way, City Hall, we know better than you Russians, or you rockers, or you gay people, or you Barney's Beanery, or any of the others. Somehow we know better, we know what's good for you. Well, God, where have I heard that before? Where have I heard that before? Conversion therapy? Pro-choice? Pro-choice city. How did we become so anti-choice when adults are trying to make their own individual decisions? I guess pro-choice in West Hollywood has its limitations in terms of what we consider what one can do to one's own body. And let's talk about what we're doing. We're not banning smoking. We're relocating smokers. That's all you're doing is pushing them. First, you pushed them outside of the bars and restaurants, out into the patios. Now you're trying to push them outside of the patios onto the sidewalks. You're just pushing them. You're not banning them. You're not changing one smoker's mind about this. And you think somehow you're going to prevent secondhand smoke from drifting on the sidewalks, onto the patios you've just pushed them off for. So somehow we get to feel like we did something when we did nothing, other than create more conflict between people in this community. So yes, I'm a little angry, and when we look at like the Rainbow Room, it reminds me of Legally Blonde. You know, you're in a bar with a baby in a bar. Like, who's going to bring their babies into the Rainbow Room to have a hamburger and a French fry? Really, it's not about protecting children at all. It's about one group of people trying to tell another group of people what they think is best for them, and I just cannot go along with that. So I did some modeling myself, because I thought, all right, let's assume we're going to do these 5-foot buffer zones. I want to understand how that's going to work. So I sent out a group of people, because I figured staff was probably not going to do that, because I'm in the minority. I'm the only one up here arguing for this. I wanted to see what happened if we put 5 feet out from patios, what it would look like in some of the most congested parts of West Hollywood, up on the Strip by the Red Rock, along Santa Monica Boulevard in Boys Town. Let's kind of see what you're talking about, not in theory, but in just practical application. What happens when you put a 5-foot buffer zone on these patios? What impact will it have on our community? And not just the patrons at these restaurants and bars, but pedestrians, bicyclists, people with strollers. What are we creating? Because we have to understand the consequences of what you're proposing. So while the computer warms up, I think I have hard copies for my colleagues so they can review, and the city manager. This is the practical effects of the proposed ordinance, West Hollywood site visits to explore the outstanding issues on this outdoor smoking ban. So the task force came to consensus on a 5-foot buffer. Los Angeles has a 10-foot buffer, and some council members even discussed a 20-foot buffer. But let's just imagine 5 for a moment. An average sidewalk in West Hollywood is 6 feet wide. That's Scott Schmidt there standing in front of the Red Rock, so we can see the Sunset Strip. Even after its redevelopment, the sidewalk is 6 feet wide. Look at Santa Monica Boulevard next. 5-foot buffer on Santa Monica Boulevard. That'll show you how much of the sidewalks are going to be blocked. So whether it's Santa Monica Boulevard or the Sunset Strip, people are being pushed to the curbside to smoke, assuming that this 5-foot buffer is going to work. A 20-foot buffer, well, there's Scott standing out in the middle of lane number 1, in the middle of Santa Monica Boulevard, hopefully not going to get arrested for doing that. But clearly a 20-foot buffer is just not going to be practical in a community like ours. So the next slide shows 5 feet from 11. 5 feet from the 11 patio, you're right in front of Trunks. You know, the guys there sitting there having their beer. That's 5 foot out from 11. So anybody who's smoking at Club 11 now has to walk over to this area or out onto the curb. If you go on the other side of Trunks, 5 feet from Bite, puts you right there in front of Trunks again. Now maybe at Trunks, people don't really care if you've got so many people. But what it means is that the smokers that would have been dispersed among these 3 patios are now all congregated in front of Trunks. Or they're blocking the sidewalks, one of the two. If we go to the next one, this is the green line showing the buffer zone right along Steak Depot, right along all of Santa Monica Boulevard. And what does it show us? That at buffer zone, we'd have people pushed out into the sidewalks. And where would smoking be allowed? Right in front of the retail shops. And whether it's the retail shop here or whether it's Andrew Christian's underwear store over by Café de Trois, more and more people get pushed in front of retail shops. So, restaurant exemptions. Proposal to allow an exemption for restaurants, no more than 25% of the outdoor areas, but there must be a 5-foot buffer between smoking and non-smoking zones. In effect, that means a net loss of up to 1/3 of the outdoor table space in any of these restaurants. Here's East Lawn Sunset. Currently, they're seating for 18 people on the outdoor smoking area. 2 tables with 6 seats could be exempted, but this buffer zone, as proposed, if adopted tonight, would result in a loss of 2 tables at East Lawn Sunset in order to comply with the 25% exemption. The Red Rock has 2 non-contiguous patios. So a smaller patio would go from seating for 12 down to a seating for 6. That's an example of what this would have its effect on the Red Rock. And the Silver Spoon has 16 outdoor tables with 2 non-smoking. The 25% exemption would mean 5 smoking 2 tops and a loss of 3 tables in order to create a buffer at the Silver Spoon, assuming they could comply. Finally, the O-Bar restaurant could have only 1 smoking table in the far westerly corner of its patio. It would have to remove the other 2 tables on its outdoor patios. And Bite could have 1 smoking table, but would lose 2 to 3 tables to the buffer. Finally, just in terms of further issues, redefining enclosed space from roof and 4 walls to just roof and walls, motherlode patios, half of the O-Bar patio, et cetera, would become enclosed. I really think we need to understand what impact we're having on each of these individual businesses. We're not Los Angeles. We know exactly which businesses are being impacted. And the outdoor service area defined broadly conflicts with other regulations. And finally, the signage should make the criminal penalties clear. I think that before we start adopting this, we need to understand exactly what impact we're having on our community. Because it appears to me from the non-smoking side, they're not happy with the exemptions at all. They don't want any exemptions. And I understand that. I'm not here suggesting that anyone should be pro-smoking. We understand that. But besides public health, there are other variable issues that are really important to the people of City of West Hollywood. Individual liberty, personal choice. We're in an adult community. We are not Calabasas. With all due respect to Pasadena, with all due respect to Torrance, those are very different places. You're all going to bed at 8 o'clock. We're just warming up for the evening. We are just warming up. And this sort of proposal just has such a disastrous impact on not just our economy, but our entire philosophy of life. And that's what I just wanted to say generally. That's why I'm so worked up about this. And I hope that my colleagues, as you're considering this, you'll consider the impacts on the land use, the environmental impacts that are going to happen as more people are pushed into the sidewalks, cigarette butts on the sidewalks and in the storm drains, that we consider that what we're doing here is just moving people around and we're creating problems where they didn't exist. All right. Thank you.